Hello there, and welcome to Andre's YouTube vlog for September 8th, 2012. Well, today I wanted to talk to you about something that I don't often mention in any of my YouTube vlogs, and that's music. The other day I was actually talking to a friend of mine that I don't talk to a lot these days out in Oakland, California. And he and I have long and lengthy discussions about funk. And, even though I'm sure many of you out there watching know exactly what I'm talking about, I have this feeling, and Henrique is pretty sure of it, that the vast majority of the people aren't as aware as they could be of what funk actually is. I think one of the people involved in the music actually had said, George Clinton, that funk used to be a bad word. A lot of that having to do with the fact that it sounds an awful lot like another four-letter word that starts with an F and continues with a U, and that I can't say on this site. Anyway, there's other reasons as well. But I think the tour manager of James Brown, Alan Leeds, actually said it well once on a rock and roll documentary in the 90s that was actually good enough to have a segment about funk. He described the music as rhythm and blues without rules. Now, as with all music in the 20th century, rock and roll, rhythm and blues, soul, whatever, the base of that is the blues. Of course, we know that. Musical people, anyway. But the fact is, most of these musics place a good deal of emphasis on the melody. The melody of a song by Chuck Berry, the melody of a song by Elvis, a melody of the song by the Beatles, or, the loudness of an act, the loudness of a Led Zeppelin, an Ozzy Osbourne, a Twisted Sister, or really powerfully expressed and screamed explicit lyrics about blood and gore and dead babies, and that's rock and roll. And in soul music, you're still kind of close to the blues or the church, where you're talking about salvation of some sort or another, and you're generally doing a ballad of some sort, even if it is up-tempo. With funk, you're not placing accent on the melody as the primary element anymore. The emphasis is on the rhythm. Even the piano and the horns, usually melodic instruments, are playing by the way of the drum, by the way of the rhythm section. And about 2 years ago, somebody I knew was actually telling me that they couldn't get into the music of James Brown. And I couldn't understand why at that point. But even if you listen to a song by James Brown, which I'm sure all of you know, like I Got You, I Feel Good, that has a fairly strong hook people remember. But the reason why a lot of people may not be able to get into James Brown's music is right there too. In the music, they refer to it as the one. Everything is on the one. The one is that rhythm. You start with it, and you move on and come back to it. And you move on and come back to it. It's not a repetitive thing. It's something you start with, and it's something you restart with. And that's basically what the funk is. Staying on that one particular rhythm where everything is surrounding it. The rhythm is your basis to the song. Now, people talk about the rock and roll age, the British invasion, even the jazz age, or, the metal age, or the new wave age, whatever, different musical ages. One musical age that I feel is neglected is called the funk age. I'd roughly put that between about 1968 and 1977, 8, before the advent of the disco dance movement. Now, the funk age didn't just include James Brown or Kool and the Gang or Isaac Hayes or Barry White or whoever we commonly associate with that era. It also included people we actually refer to in this world as rock stars. Edgar Winter, Gino Vanelli, Steely Dan, Walter Becker, and Donald Fagen. All of these people, for all intents and purposes, were funk-oriented artists. About at least 50 or 60% of the music they did qualified as funk in one way or the other. Which means that today, on Amazon or in your local record store, you can find funk pretty much anywhere. You could even find it in your classical section because of one man, Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder made funk music inspired by him being trained at the Michigan School of the Blind, listening to Johann Sebastian Bach. You can find funk in your classical section, but a classical person would think of funk or rock and roll as a non-music if they're very snobby. But the chords that Bach played were highly influential toward funk, the way that he played through Stevie Wonder. And other people since copied that style. So, Bach was funky in his time. So you can really find it anywhere. So in the end, funk really isn't a bad word at all. It's just a way of playing. And you're probably listening to funk all the time and not even realizing it. Paul Simon's 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, played commonly on oldies stations. It's funk. I mean, because after World War II, a trend occurred in music that subsists to this day, basically. In the 30s, you had artists like Artie Shaw and Benny Goodman and Fletcher Henderson, who were popular instrumentalists, who didn't have vocals in all their songs, and they had fan clubs. People came to listen to them play their instruments and dance to their music. After World War II, you started to get people like Frank Sinatra, and the trend went from popular instrumental big bands to popular singers. And even on the Cosby Show, there was an episode where somebody mentioned, well, we like Miles Davis's early work, but I wish he would sing. If you heard Miles Davis's talk, you'd know why that was such a comical statement. But the fact of the matter is, funk was that little brief return to an instrumental-oriented music where the melody was secondary to the rhythm. You had bands like 8'th, 'Wind & Fire who were highly melodic, but the message in funk reflected the rhythms of life. 8'th, Wind & Fire once said, if you're down and out, sing a song. Kool and the Gang once defined themselves as scientists of sound who are mathematically putting it down. James Brown said, I'm black and I'm proud. These are funk messages, and they're very important. They're very social, very positive, and very political. So if all of you out there think that, funk is a corny music that's retro and that's old-fashioned and I don't really want to listen to it, the things you might want to hear in music that you aren't hearing in the heavy metal or the hip-hop, which is actually a direct ancestor of funk or descendant. I keep getting those two things confused. It's related to funk directly. If you're listening to any of those things, the messages you might be looking for there are going to be found primarily in your funk. There's a lot of hip-hop that reflects that too, and some rock. Like the Beatles. All you need is love. You can find things like that in funk if you're looking for, but even better, the messages are broader because you're dealing with rhythm not only in the music, but the lyrics have to deal with the rhythm of life. And when all your music is dealing directly with rhythm, lyrically and musically, it's definitely something that's worth keeping an eye out. So explore your record stores. Don't tune something out because it's funky. A lot of people might. There might be something worth it in there for you. Talk to you next time.